Hello, BookTube. I have to begin with a little apology, the type of apology that most YouTubers don't make, can't make, which is that I apologize for only one video yesterday. I actually filmed three. The one that was relatively short, 10 minutes or so, uploaded just fine, and then the other two just did not. They just kept crawling along. And finally one, a 35-minute comic book video, did upload after well over a day. A solid day of just having the phone plugged in, having the upload procedure go on, and me just using iPads for all the stuff that I would want the phone for, because I didn't trust using the phone while it was uploading. I thought it might bring me right back to square one. And the other video was also 35 minutes long, and it hasn't uploaded at all. So it was only one video yesterday. I don't know how many there are going to be today because I'm gun shy. I'm worried now about making a long video, because I don't want to go through that again if I can help it. It might not have had anything to do with the length of the video. I've had long videos upload without any problem many times. It might have had just atmospheric effect. It was swampy, hot, and humid here in Boston yesterday. Felt a lot worse than it was. The temperature never really got that high, but it felt just unendurable. And I don't know if part of that is projection on my part, because my little schnauzer, my little Frida Bean, loves to go out charging, with her little feet just charging underneath her when we're out on our walks, and is just indomitable. She's willing to go forever, but as her parent, I have to watch out for whether or not she's overheating, because when she does overheat, she starts to list on her left side, the tongue goes out the side of the mouth, she starts being unresponsive to, no, it's easy to see, and it's as dangerous in dogs as it is in humans, so I've had to keep an eye on her for heat, and maybe that was maybe I'm just projecting how hot it was. One way or another, I'm back today. I have a bunch of videos that I want to make, but I don't want to make any of them really long. I'm worried that will slow things down. But one kind of video that we haven't made in a long time is mail. I'm not getting anywhere near. Those of you who are maybe new to the channel won't know the drop off here, which is that for years, I myself am a book critic, and for years I got piles of books in the mail every day. And of course that has largely changed. Publishing houses, most of them are in New York, most of them are not open. Their workers are all at home, working from home. Their shipping departments are empty of people. Their cubicles are empty of new books, and a lot of times the publishers aren't sending out printed books, they're sending out e-copies. It's kind of interesting in a way. There's a future doctoral dissertation to be written on the subject of how the American publishing industry adapted to the pandemic. In many ways, it barely missed a beat, at least in terms of professional critics, at least in terms of the professional behind-the-scenes view of the world. It barely missed a beat. I have talked to many of my fellow critics, including the very few of them who are like me, are professional critics, do nothing else. They don't have any kind of side gig. They just review books for a living. And not one of them has a horrible story to tell. They just shifted right away from printed review copies to electronic review copies. Publicists are still there. They still have the files for these things. They're still perfectly willing to send them out to active reviewers. So the question now that's coming up with horrifying regularity is, are publishers going to revert back to printed review copies at all? Are they just going to discontinue that whole process, that whole procedure? I really hope they don't. I really hope they don't, but they could. Certainly this transition was easy and painless enough so that the bean counters at major publishing houses in America have got to be saying, okay, remind me again why we're doing this? We're still getting reviews, we're still getting copies out to reviewers, all of this is still happening, but the cumbersomeness of it, of getting bales of these books and then mailing them out, and then mailing out the finished copies, the cumbersomeness of that procedure is not happening anymore, and that's to everybody's benefit. Why would we go back to that? We shall see. We shall see. In any case, we have one mail package today. But I also want to show you periodicals, because I got a pile-up of literary periodicals, the type that I just love. In fact, the three best ones aside from, of course, my own Open Letters Review, which is online only and free, and largely involves me, so it's not quite the same caliber. But we have the London Times Literary Supplement, what old-style readers of it, like me, still reflexively refer to as the Lit Sup. This is the TLS, and with a great cover. The issue here is the lockdown travel issue, and look at this illustration. There are all kinds of travel cases with the traveling tags and badges on them, but what do the badges say? The sofa, the bath, the bed, the fridge. That's the traveling that people do during coronavirus. And this issue has lots and lots, I haven't read it yet, it has lots and lots of enticing looking stuff. But of course I go straight to the letters page, because we keep an eye on the letters page for ongoing controversies, for ongoing discussions or whatnot. There isn't much of one here. There's a little ongoing discussion about the Maigret novels, Simenon's Maigret novels, including one little side discussion on how much he drinks. And one writer here, David Ford from Hornchurch in London, mentions that although Maigret's brooding method of detection often means that he cracks a case with a glass of something in his hand, despite his intake, he never even gets slightly drunk. Which is a detail that I kind of remember. But there's another letter here that sent a chill down my spine. It sent a chill down the spine of any reviewer. You may be able to hear that noise in the background. That is not a leaf blower. That is a blender. My surly houseboy does not consume solid food. He has green sludge instead. He puts perfectly good solid food into his blender, and then he blends it into a Soylent Green style goop that is what he subsists on. I believe the last of his adult teeth just painlessly and quietly fell out a few years ago. He is now a creature from Wall-E. So the background here at Hyde Cottage is frequently punctuated by him making his Soylent Green smoothies. Sorry about that. But the letter here is a type that critics dread. Critics love when the author of a book that they have savaged or even just reviewed, pluses and minuses, just an even-handed review, writes in arguing the principles. They love that. But they hate this kind of letter. I've had it happen to me a couple of times, and you don't ever forget it. It stings for days. This is a letter from Linda Daly in Seattle, and she writes, Michael LaPointe's review of Ann Tyler's most recent novel, Redhead by the Side of the Road, states that the protagonist, Micah Mortimer, is black. I believe he is mistaken. There is no evidence in the text to back it up. I'm curious to know how he arrived at this conclusion. Is it because the novel takes place in Baltimore? Oh, that is, in Aubrey and Maturin terms, that is a salvo below the waterline. that is painful. I don't know if Michael LaPointe, I don't know him at all. I don't know how badly he will take it. But if I got a letter like that, and of course the letters page editor for the TLS is gleefully rubbing their hands together when they run a letter like that. They could just get it privately and pass it along privately to the reviewer. But instead they want the world to know, and that's the price you pay. As much as I hate to say it, because it's happened to me and it's painful, that's the price you pay if you get a basic thing wrong. If you make a basic claim that the text does not support, not a principled argument, but a factual argument, I think that running letters like that serves a real purpose. So, even as painful as it is. But I'm looking forward to reading the issue. And one of the reasons why, one of the things I do, the calculus that I do when I look at a new literary review, I look at the table of contents right away. One of the things I do is to look to see whether or not I'm in for any unpleasant surprises. Is a book that was written by someone I hate under review and maybe going to get a praising review? Also, are there any reviews written by people that I hate? There aren't many people that I hate, and there are only a tiny handful, fewer than you can count on the fingers of one hand, and there aren't many authors that I hate either. But I still want to know ahead of time. I still scan the table of contents, because if there's a review by an author I hate, especially if it's a book that I hated, then I want to steel myself for the piece, in case the piece makes all sorts of fraudulent points, or even worse, what if there's a praising review of a book I hated that makes good points? For a dyed-in-the-wool know-it-all such as yours truly, that can be very painful. And also, if there's a review, especially a long review, written by someone that I don't like, a reviewer I hate, then I want to know ahead of time, because I will just wholesale skip that piece. And as a general rule of thumb, as petty as it is, if a literary journal has 2 or 3 pieces that I have to skip, then I will skip the whole review. I won't pick and choose. And so I checked all 3 of these, and they're all in the clear. But another reason I look at the table of contents is far less fraught psychologically, and that is to see how many of the books under review are books that I have read or even read and reviewed. And there's quite a few. The next review that we have to look at is the New York Review of Books, another great English language book review. And this one has all sorts of interesting things in it. The thing about the New York Review of Books is the caliber, the name recognition caliber of a lot of the writers they get to do their reviews. Like in this, we have Michael Tomasky, we have Claire Wills, Harry Kunzru, Ingrid Rowland. We have the great Dermot McCullough, who's doing a review here of the Eastern Orthodox Church, which I have not read. But there's lots of stuff here that Surviving Genocide by Jeffrey Osler, Surviving Autocracy by Masha Gessen, Adverse Events, No Authority, Writings from the Laureateship by Anne Enright is paired with a review of her novel Actress. I've read Actress, but I haven't read No Authority. I haven't read a lot of the books in here. There's also a big chunk of books reviewed by Christopher Benfey on modern dance. I haven't read any of those. So, I also meant to mention Brenda Wineapple. Sorry, that's a big omission. She's also one of the reviewers in here. She reviews Criminal Descent, a book we saw on this channel about the Alien Suppression Acts, John Adams. And there are quite a few books here that I haven't read. Quite a few that I have read, quite a few that I haven't. It's a nice balance. So that's enticing, but even more enticing is the next one, the London Review of Books. I finally got it. Lots of subscribers get it much earlier than I do, but that's okay. And this London review, the table of contents is almost entirely books that I have read and often reviewed. You run down. There's an essay by Adam Schatz on Donald Trump, on the politics in America, and that I will read it, but it isn't specifically a book review. But we have Learning from the Germans, Confronting Race and the Memory of Evil by Susan Neiman. That is by Thomas LaCour Reviews it. I read that. We have The War for Gaul, a new translation by James O'Donnell of Julius Caesar, and that is reviewed by Michael Kulikowski, whose own books on ancient Rome I have read. We have Radical Wordsworth by Jonathan Bate, and Wordsworth A Life, an updated version, Stephen Gill's updated version of his classic Life of Wordsworth, paired here in a review and reviewed by Thomas Kamer. I've read both of those, and I believe I wrote about one of them. I don't think I've written about the Gill book, at least the update. I may have written about the original. Then we have Footprints in Search of Future Fossils by David Farrier. Lavinia Greenlaw reviews it. I read that book and really enjoyed it. We have Extraterrestrial Languages by Daniel Oberhaus. That's reviewed by Nick Richardson. I read that book. I wasn't all that wild about it. I thought it got lost in the weeds a lot. I'll be interested to read the review. We have The Nation City, Why Mayors Are Now Running the World by the infamous Rahm Emanuel. And that's reviewed by David Runciman, and it's all about all of the power aggregations that have fallen into local government. I never read the book. I don't think I ever got it. Rahm Emanuel was, of course, a key player in the early years of President Obama's first administration, and a figure of considerable animation on the right and considerable humor on the left. He's an articulate but kind of ruthless guy, and an accident earlier in his life deprived him of a couple of digits on the middle finger of one of his hands, which just so happens to be the finger that you give if you're giving the finger to something. And President Obama used to joke that the combination of the fact that Rahm Emanuel is a bit of an a-hole, even his friends are willing to admit that sometimes, that he can be a bit of an a-hole. The combination of that fact and the fact that he's missing a few digits on that particular finger, President Obama used to say that it renders him virtually mute. But I haven't read the book, but I'll gladly read Runciman. Then we have The Complete Novels by Gene Stafford, which was a Library of America volume that I read and loved. Don't think I wrote about it, but I read and loved it. And that's reviewed by Tessa Hadley, who I think is a novelist. Yes? Yeah, she's written a bunch of novels and short stories. And you see, as we're going along here, there are virtually no omissions. I've critically read, with pencil in hand, all of these books. That's going to make this a very engaging issue. And I don't think we're done. Are we? Oh, yes, we're done. The only other book in here, Mrs. Escobar, My Life with Pablo, is not a book that I have read. So there are 2 books in this table of contents that I haven't read. But there's also political commentary and tons of letters, so there'll be plenty to entertain me. And I will just set these aside on the couch and read them, pen in hand, just in one block. Because the ritual that I had forever and ever, for 50 years, there was a little Chinese food restaurant, a hole-in-the-wall place in Boston's Chinatown. Whenever I was in the country, I would go there with a pile of periodicals just like this, sit down and luxuriate in reading them with pen in hand, no phone, and nobody in the world knowing where I am. Nobody. No chance whatsoever that anyone I know or have ever heard of would even by accident stumble across this place, because it wasn't really much of a restaurant. It was more like just the front parlor of a building, a business building. I don't quite know how to describe it. There are a number of places, there were at least a number of places like that in old Chinatown. Chinatown, like everywhere else in Boston, is gentrifying, so probably this place will be gone. For all I know, it might be gone now. Because, despite the fact that Boston has lessened pandemic restrictions to allow in-house restaurant eating, who on earth in their right mind would feel safe doing that? Where your food is being prepared by someone, where the utensils, the plates, the menu, the table, all of it has been touched and breathed on and coughed on and sneezed on by you don't know how many people. There's no way to make that experience safe from this pandemic. No way at all. I understand it's a vital part of the economy. I understand it's also a vital part of the psychology of reopening. It feels like house arrest is still happening if you can't go to a restaurant, but there is no way to make that experience safe. So I'm not going to do it, and I have a feeling that I won't be the only one. Who would feel comfortable in a crowded restaurant, people talking and laughing at tables all around you? That never, granted, happened in my little hole-in-the-wall place. And nevertheless, instead, I have developed a new routine where I just read these things here. I don't let them pile up. That's bad, so I don't do that. But those were the periodicals, and then we have a package, like old times. I think those old times are gone, but this feels heavy. This may be a finished copy of something. So let's see what this is. Oh, it is a finished copy. Okay, of something that I believe is out already. Yeah, this is, oh no, this is, early July. I think we saw this already on this channel, but this is the finished copy of David Hill's book, The Vapors. This is the finished copy. That's kind of nice looking. Kind of like it. What have we got here? Do you remember this? This comes out in July the 7th is the date on this. I bet they'll still do it. Bookstores will be open in a lot of the country. The resort town of Hot Springs, Arkansas, where President Bill Clinton spent his formative years and where David Hill was born and raised, was once the United States' premier destination for gambling and vice, even vying directly with Las Vegas for the crown. The town, with its naturally occurring hot springs, has been a tourist attraction modeled on European spa towns like Baden-Baden. Illegal gambling took root in Hot Springs following the Civil War, but it was not until the 1920s and 30s that the city entered the high-rolling heyday. And the author here brilliantly tells the history of that heyday by braiding together the lives of 3 true-life characters. Oni Madden, a powerful New York City gangster who relocated to Hot Springs in the 1930s after doing a second stint in Sing Sing. Dane Harris, a local guy whom Madden took under his wing and who rose to become the town's boss gambler. And the author's own grandmother, Hazel Hill, a hard-living single mom of 3 boys who scratched together a living working in Harris's club. Wow. So there's a personal connection with all this. His grandmother's stories, and he's researching her as much as he's researching anything else. Fantastic. Okay, well, I've had the advanced copy of this for a while, and I haven't got to it. So this is a perfect reason to do that, because July the 7th, believe it or not, is right around the corner. So we will see who is the author when he's at home. He's a writer from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Yes. His work has appeared regularly in Grantland and The Ringer, and he's featured in The New Yorker, The New York Times, GQ, and New York Magazine, as well as on This American Life. And he lives with his wife and 3 children in Nyack, New York, where he serves as vice president of the National Writers Union. Okay, all right. Well, this thing is covered in blurbs, so it's probably very engaging. I will get to it. Uh, when will I get to it? Well, it won't be this week. June still has tons of books that I need to deal with seriously, so I'll do this in early July. But there you go. That is the mail. We have one finished copy and a bunch of literary journals. Which is not bad. It's not as good as 20 books in the mail, but it's better than nothing. So I'm going to wrap this up before it gets too long. I don't want any uploading problems, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.